All right, once again, welcome to the Unapologetic Chauvinist. This is Justice, your host. This video is geared towards folks who do not receive food stamps, that food subsidy. Let me speak up a little bit. I want you to take the time, if you get a chance, to go back and listen to my videos before you spend all your food stamps, part 1 and part 2. Even though that's geared towards individuals who receive food stamps, but it might be something you want to think about. This video is for people, again, who do not receive food stamps, and the topic here is food prices will skyrocket if government shutdown continues. So why do I say that? Well, one, we know historically when demand goes down, prices decrease slightly. Okay. So we're talking about, if I'm not mistaken, 50 million, something like that. Maybe the numbers are lower than I remember. But 50 million, I believe, are on food stamps, right? And so that is an indirect government subsidy to supermarkets, which creates an artificial demand, an increased demand, right? And so if you study basic economics, you have supply and demand. When supplies are low and demand is high, prices are high, right? Now, let's think about this. People who receive food stamps received a double subsidy in the month of January, for January and February. That double subsidy is supposed to hold them over to March, assuming that the government shutdown will be over. Now, we do know that the government shutdown has been discontinued briefly. We do not know if it will continue or not. So you have to think about the worst case scenario as a person who spends cash or, digital credits on food. Here's why you need to think about this. Because again, when that demand decreases, that artificial high demand created by the SNAP program, the food stamps program, when that decreases, food prices are going to decrease to keep profits at a continuous rate. Okay, because markets are in the business of profit and not to feed you. Understand that the supermarket is not on your side. It's a business. And again, I am not socialist. I am not anti-business. I'm just telling you what the truth is. Businesses are in business for profit, for the most part. And just to go down the rabbit hole briefly, so are nonprofits. They're in the business of profits, not profits for the company, but profits for the individuals who work for the nonprofits, who take wages and salaries, which profit them. Okay, so the businesses are generally not philanthropic in nature. Okay, back to the supermarket. So when the prices decrease slightly, because that's what's going to happen, you can look this up historically, prices are going to decrease slightly and briefly. Okay, and then you have one or two options. You have two options, You have two options. Two things will happen. One, the amount of production will change. The supply will change. The amount of food available will change because of loss of profits. Okay. Here's the other thing that will happen, or should I say possibly happen. Prices will then increase to maintain profits. Why? Because most businesses are in debt and they have to pay their creditors. They have to pay their creditors. Let me say this again. Most major corporations have loans of some kind, and or they have shareholders in which they need to give out dividends, or the value of this. They want the value of their stock to increase. So they have creditors, whether it's a loan or shareholders, stockholders, whatever you want to call them. They have creditors. Major corporations, your grocery markets, most are major corporations. They have creditors, and they're going to have to pay their creditors, and the prices will increase if, let me say this again, if the government shutdown persists after the 15-day suspension. Okay, if there is no deal. I believe the date is February 15th, but I think something like that. Okay, the point is, if you're paying cash, you need to start thinking about being wise with your cash now. Because if you think food prices are high now, think Venezuela. And I know that's an overused example for how bad socialism is, even though it's a great example. But it's overused, but it's true. Food prices could skyrocket, maybe not quite to a Venezuelan level, but they could skyrocket because the supply and demand nature of economics will change if the millions on food stamps don't receive their subsidies for March, April, May. It may not happen in March. It may not happen in April. It may not happen in May. I'm not saying I know exactly when something like this will take place, but we know, if you study history, it happens, and we have examples of this happening now. We have recent examples. We have countries like Zimbabwe, when their currency was went through hyperinflation, food prices skyrocketed. A similar thing can happen because, again, food and supermarkets are indirectly subsidized and directly subsidized by government. Just think about it. Large corporate farmers get federal subsidies. If the government shutdown continues, what happens to those subsidies? They go away. Now, again, these are corporations that have loans and creditors that they have to pay. So what happens to the prices they have to charge in order to pay their loans, pay their creditors? It gets passed on to you like every other corporation. Every other corporation. We know historically that government is not supposed to be involved in everything, and that actually includes food production. It might be useful for the government to be involved in food storage in case of emergency, but food production, it creates an artificial market. It's not the free market. And when you have an artificial market, you create chaos eventually. Eventually chaos will ensue. So again, let me drive this point home. If you do not receive food stamps and you spend cash on food, you better think about buying rice, beans, pasta maybe, salt for preservation of things that you have now. Research canning vegetables. Buy vegetables, can them, get some pickling salt, that sort of stuff. These are things that I've done this month. I'm telling you this for a reason, because I want to help as many people as possible. Again, this video is for informational purposes. It is not to be misconstrued as financial advice. It is a suggestion. A good one. Might I add, it's a good one. And I shouldn't be laughing. This is a very serious matter. So let me get serious. Again, think about food storage. Think about how you're going to store them. I bought buckets with lids to store the things that I bought, like flour, yeast. You want to think about these things. If you're one of those individuals, and I'm not judging you, who take your cash and find someone who has extra food stamps and buys their excess in food stamps, you won't be able to do that if the government shutdown persists. So what are you going to do? You better think about storing some food for you and your family so that if the storm comes, you can hedge the storm. But guess what? If the storm never comes and I'm wrong, having practical things that you use on a regular basis available in storage in your home does not hurt you. That just means you save later. If everything happens to return to normal, then you can use your storage, or some of it, right? Because we all should have some food storage in general in case of an emergency. You can have the weather natural disaster, as they call them, or a weather catastrophe. And if you don't have food stored, how can you, and the roads are blocked, trees are down, or there's excessive snow, it is still the winter, how will you get to the market? Okay, your goal is not to be dependent on other institutions. You can utilize them, that's fine. But to become dependent on those resources, you put yourself in a very bad way. And I've done it in the past. Okay? But think about learning how to garden and to provide some of these things for yourself. Get as close to self-sufficiency as you possibly can on the budget that you have. And give up some of the luxury items that you don't need. Okay, I hope this information finds you well. I try to keep my videos short, not too lengthy, so that you can consume this information, and so you can go back and listen to it again in case you missed something. And it's kind of difficult to do that if the video is an hour. All right. Have a great day and God bless.